I'm Van Sebastian here with my co-host S.A. Baz Collins to bring you this week's Written on the Edge, Season 11, Episode 6 interview. We're joined by Christian Baines. That's right, he's back in the hot seat, here to discuss his latest novel, Andalusia Dogs. So if you haven't heard any of his previous episodes, and I highly recommend them, let me introduce my guest. Christian Baines is an awkward nerd turned slightly less awkward author. Raised on dark humor and powered by New Zealand wine, he is the author of 9 novels, including gay paranormal series The Arcadia Trust and My Cat's Guide to Online Dating. Born in Australia, he now travels the world whenever possible, living and writing in Toronto, Canada between trips. Christian, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Baines and Baz. It's lovely to be here. And yeah, it would be nicer to be out and somewhere else in the world right now. But
Well,
we're at the end of the deep freeze now. So,
I was gonna say, well, especially Australia, where it's summer right now.
right, you would think, but no, we'll make do with what we've got.
Exactly. Although Canada's a nice place too.
I will take it over some other options right now. Absolutely.
Amen.
Like a little south from where you are.
I wasn't gonna,
So, so
not
pretending
doing
that
that.
our, yeah, yep, I'm just moving on. Pretending our guests haven't heard your previous episodes, and there may be a couple. How did you go from awkward nerd with New Zealand wine to author of 9 novels? What,
Uh,
what was that fire? What was that passion?
well, I mean, the New Zealand wine helped. Um, but I don't know. I always knew I wanted to sort of create stories and share stories in some sort of medium. I kind of so it sort of got me curious about consuming all kinds of stories in various mediums, video games, movies, um, books, what have you. Always read voraciously as a kid, and eventually just sort of writing novels ended up agreeing with my inner introvert,
Hmm.
and is by far the most economical way of sharing the imaginary people in my head. So I
Nice.
mean, I've sort of flirted with other formats, but yeah, it's kind of how novel writing's become dominant for me.
Love it. Well, we're here today to discuss Andalusia Dogs. Now, do you want to dive into your novel first or talk about the project it's a part of?
Um, we could talk about the project first because it's been going on for a couple of years now. I think the last time I was on your show, we talked about Geistfleisch, which was
Mhm.
part of the first season of Haunted Hearts, which was a collection of 10 stories, all focused in and around gay ghost stories, all involving romance to some degree or another. So this season is a little bit different. It's called Season of the Witch. And as the title suggests, it's all in and around male witches as the central story drive. We have 11 authors participating this time. About half of them are coming across from the previous installment, and the other half are new arrivals. So,
Nice.
and within those 11 books, you have all kinds of subgenres covered. You have some wonderful sort of comedic work, like Kevin Clare's book or Maddie McLean's book. You have some darker, more horror-driven work. You have some more romantic kind of work. So there's really something for every kind of speed of romance reader out there. The only sort of condition was that it had to involve a male witch and had to involve some kind of uh, queer male romance, and it also had to be written by a male or non-binary author. Uh, so we have a good mix of sort of gay, bi, and trans authors, but all own voices queer male authors.
Beautiful. I do love that. And I think we've had Jeff and Kevin on to talk about their contributions to this season.
Yes, I think you have. I think you have.
All
Yeah,
right.
and
So,
Jeff is actually one of the main spearheads of the project. So he's been fantastic and completely tireless in bringing this to fruition. So yeah,
he does love his horror, I will say. And another sidebar, we just had another freeze.
Yeah, it just pinned you on the most unflattering freeze frame.
I'm sure. All
That
right.
was close. Um,
So,
all right,
jumping back in,
good to go ahead.
so let's talk about your contribution, Andalusia Dogs. What do readers need to know about it?
Okay, so Andalusia Dogs. I'll just hold it up here. This
Yay.
Gorgeous. I
so
love that cover.
my my first shirtless cover model. That wasn't intentional particularly. It just ended up okay. Finally, time to dive into that pool. But this it felt like a logical sort of progression from Geistfleisch. Geistfleisch was about the pre-fascist Berlin era, the Weimar, very active time for queer life and so on, very active time for sort of queer, um, sexuality studies and activism and all that sort of thing until it all comes to a screeching halt. This time I wanted to do something, again, set in Europe, but at the other end, another historical set in Europe, but at the other end of dictatorship. So this one comes at the end of the Franco era in Spain. Ended with Franco's death in 1975, and from that point, Spanish culture just underwent complete and utter revolution. You had various parts of the country wanting independence. You had no one in particular agreement on what this new democracy should look like, what role the monarchy should play. And culturally, you had people discovering all kinds of sex and drugs and art and forms of expression that had been denied them. And it happened all over the country, but it was most prevalent in Madrid in a movement called um, uh, La Movida Madrileña. Uh, and yeah, it was just a very explosive time for creativity, and particularly queer creativity, or certainly queer inclusive creativity. For the first time, people were sort of able to create art about queer characters or exploring these kind of social taboos that had been repressed under Franco for so long. So that yielded a couple of major artists, a couple of major bands that became very big in the Spanish-speaking world. Probably the most famous artist to emerge out of that is filmmaker Pedro Almodovar. Uh,
Mhm.
Stayed kind of a cult figure until around the late 80s, but if you go back and check out some of his films from um, before Women on the Verge of a Nervous Breakdown, films like Matador and Law of Desire and Dark Habits. He's got this wonderfully twisted sensibility that really captures that kind of era. So I don't know. To me, it sounded like a really fun kind of era and that sort of punk underground scene to explore. My main characters are not filmmakers; they are theater creators. So they're sort of exploring that scene.
Mhm.
And it's against a backdrop of political upheaval, but in all this craziness, sort of the unofficial slogan of the Movida became "Bless this chaos." Uh, the main character, Alex, who is a wannabe film director, oh, sorry, wannabe theater director, um, encounters Diego, who is kind of a mysterious, very charismatic figure. He's also quite volatile in certain ways, and you get the very clear impression that there are secrets that he doesn't want to particularly share with Alex, at least not right away.
Mhm.
But there also seems to be sort of a genuine care there. So as Alex goes further and further into this relationship, things get a little bit more dangerous, but also a little bit more fulfilling artistically. And as more and more elements and circumstances seem to go his way in terms of getting his project up and off the ground, uh, Alex has to sort of start considering whether some of the factors that have contributed to that are worth the price that's been paid. So yeah, not going to spoil beyond that. As I said, it's a male witch story. There's a strong romantic element against this backdrop of all this artistic craziness. So
Mhm.
it was a lot of fun to do, and I really enjoyed sort of diving into the history of that era and using that as kind of a framework um, set in one of my favorite countries in the world. So
Beautiful. So are you is hmm, is the chaos dark? Like, is it edge of the seat, edgy darkness for the reader, or is there an element of whimsy to it? Because with the theater, you could go either way.
And with witchcraft.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, and it is absolutely both. Um, the to this day, there's still some controversy whether the Movida was a positive or a negative influence on Spanish culture on the whole, or whether it would have progressed to become the pretty open-minded and all-embracing society it is without that era and all those elements. So yes, it was a time characterized by tremendous creativity, tremendous freedom, and all these terrific films and bands and everything that produced. But it was also a time of tremendous drug problems. It was a time when Madrid was an incredibly dangerous city to live in. Um, there's a couple of scenes where characters sort of go off by themselves at night, and that is involved that there's a little bit more going on with this character,
Hmm.
that they're comfortable doing this, that they might be than there might otherwise be. But yeah, like a lot of times of social change, um, it had its very dangerous sort of unstable element. Um, so I tried to sort of capture that in terms of how the play they're working on kind of evolves, the theater scene that they're in, the kinds of people that the main characters are surrounded by. Um, and I tried to keep that sort of element of danger, both political and just sort of kind of everyday, uh, always within reach of any given scene that was there.
So, did queer history become a tool for your supernatural fiction because of your personal research, or is it the reverse? You needed a hook, and so you went looking for the elements in history.
I mean, it does certainly serve as a hook. But I find that if you can draw on real history and real legends and back on the real world, it makes your fantasy that much stronger. So it gives you such a strong foundation. And I particularly found this with sort of Geistfleisch. Yeah, we've got this organization that kind of studies the supernatural and um, you know, ostensibly involving vampires and ghosts and whatever else, but it's very clearly in parallel to the Institute of Sexual Sciences Research.
Hmm.
And there's sort of this unspoken link between the two. I didn't want to over explain it because going that way you can kind of get caught up in, well, this element doesn't work, that doesn't connect.
And suddenly you become
Um,
a history teacher.
yeah, exactly. And then you're sort of distracting from the essence of your story that you want to tell, which is more about the ideas than the history. But the history is still very much, as I said, the foundation of it. There's real figures in Andalusia Dogs that are alluded to. I didn't want to go into too much detail or drop too many names, largely because a lot of these are still not really known to an English-speaking audience.
Hmm.
And I didn't want to sort of overwhelm people with, you know, this is such a niche interest that you wind up being alienated. But it's kind of present insofar as if you're interested, you can look more into this. If something pikes your curiosity, it's like, oh, okay, that's actually a real theater, and they really do have a policy of no popcorn. So I was looking at little interesting details like that.
So, I mean,
Uh,
that touches on one of my favorite aspects of writing. If the author knows, you can paint the beautiful picture without having to explain.
exactly. I mean, I think of it as like a backdrop to I don't know, to a play or a video game or something.
Mhm.
If something in that backdrop catches your eye, you can go as deep as you like to look at the details. It's got nothing to do with the main story, but if it interests you, then it's done its job.
Yep. And you have peppered your writings with interest for years.
Thank you.
And I can say that because I've known your writings for years. So, what else about Andalusia Dogs do you want audiences to know that we didn't think to ask because we were afraid of spoilers?
Well, I don't want to spoil too much. It's a standalone novel.
Hmm.
So you don't need to read any of the other well, I strongly recommend you read the other Haunted Hearts, but
Yeah.
it's not necessarily for not necessary for understanding
Consume the
each
collection.
individual. Yeah, exactly. They're a collection of standalones. But Andalusia Dogs, much like Geistfleisch, I very much wanted it to feel like a spiritual successor to Geistfleisch.
Hmm.
And it is not closely tied in to some of my other novels as Geistfleisch is. It doesn't feature as many of the characters from those novels. It doesn't feature as um, explicit ties and elements. But they are still there. It does take place in the same universe as some of my other novels. So without going into too much detail, I'll just leave that there and
Perfect.
yeah, people can draw from that what they like.
Baz, did you have questions?
I just want to know what resources you use. Now, I'm assuming, are you setting this in the 70s or
It's
what?
set in 1980.
Oh, okay. Okay. So
Yeah, so summer of 1980.
what sources or what when you're writing something historical, especially in another culture or another uh locale from where you are, you have many choices to make in gathering your information. What was your main thrust of the research, and what did you discover that shocked you, if anything?
Hmm. I mean, I definitely made an effort to sort of surround myself with watching films from that era, listening to listening to music from that era, trying to find photos, poetry, any sort of cultural traces that I could that sort of came from that time. A lot of the ideas I had to kind of toss out or put aside simply because, oh, okay, that band hasn't put a record out at this point yet, or this film hasn't been made yet, so no one would know what you're talking about, or this wasn't a hit, so no one would know what you were talking about. I had to go fact check through national songs would have been known in Spain at the time, because not everything is universal. I had to check uh, what certain sites would have been like at that time that are now big tourist attractions, but what would they have looked like in 1980
Right.
when Spain was still largely, aside from the beach resorts, was still largely an unknown quantity. No one really wanted to go to Madrid as a tourist. No one went to the Basque Country as a tourist. Um, I had to look at how sort of the relationship with some of the separatist movements would have affected the characters. Oh, okay, you're
Mm-hmm.
going to the Basque
Mm-hmm.
Country. What you have concerns about, you know, being stopped by police, or and a lot of the police from this time. It's a very interesting thing to write when you're writing about a society just coming out of a dictatorship, because what do those former tools of the dictatorship, they don't evolve and change overnight.
No.
And this was something people dealt with for a good long while after the fall of Franco, you know the steady dismantlement of the police state. So, in terms of resources, it's a little bit challenging since a lot of what out there is not in English. My Spanish is okay, but not to the point of understanding and comprehending and drawing information out of long, complex academic texts, which a lot of this stuff is, unfortunately, and a lot of the stuff that is in English is by academics, videos by academics reading, and
Which was drier
you
than
can
the
see the look
wine
on
you
my
were
face.
consuming.
Yeah, Yeah, and just sort of like, okay, the content is interesting, people, but really, uh, so it was a lot of sifting through that, and then okay, well, how do I gonna take this and repurpose it for my audience? Because my audience wants spice, they want romance, they want to get engaged with characters quickly. Um, I also took pretty much a lot of what I knew about Spain from working in tourism and travel writing and just visiting the country. I'm like, okay, this is what this region is known for. This is worth sort of name dropping. Um, so they're nothing major. They're just little details that kind of add to the immersion, and I think they just make they help sell the story overall.
Yeah, and tourism over time gentrifies everything. You look at New York in the 1970s and 80s, it was a vastly different city than what it is now.
Yeah,
So yeah,
absolutely.
you have those kinds of elements, and you can see it reflected in other major metropolitan areas. Even London was not the same as it is now. So it's quite amazing to have stories set where the character is also the location, but the location is a character we don't know ourselves because we weren't there at the time. So that had to be a really interesting thing to write from a locale perspective, no?
Yeah, and it was kind of interesting. In I took a long trip through Spain with my partner and his mom, maybe end of 2023. And we went to Barcelona, Valencia, Madrid, all over Andalusia, um, which was fantastic. But it was interesting to me, particularly in Madrid, trying to imagine, okay, what was this city like 50 years ago
Mm-hmm,
or
mm-hmm.
45 years ago, when it was more dangerous and tourists weren't really coming here. It probably wasn't as dangerous or as gritty as New York was at that time, but it was certainly very different to what it is now.
Right.
And it's that adage of you can never really go home again. Like you visit a place 20 years ago, it's going to be completely different to when you visit, or even 5 years ago. It's
Mm,
going to be completely changed.
yeah. Love that.
Yep.
Okay.
Are you ready for this year's get to know you questions?
We can try.
Take it away, Bass.
I
All
promise to
right.
be mostly truthful.
Okay. Oh, well, that's always a help. All right. But before we get to that, just wanted to say, take a moment and say, if you enjoy what we're doing here, please like, subscribe, comment, do all the things, hype the video. If you see the little hype button, definitely do that. That helps us out tremendously and helps our authors out to get more notice. So, one way you can support us, because there are costs involved with us running this whole operation, is you can go to buymeacoffee.com/rope podcast and make a one-time donation, or you can do a monthly donation either with patreon.com/rope podcast, or you can join our memberships, which are now down and active, and they're only 99 cents a month. So for less than a US buck, you can definitely help us keep the lights on and everything running. And with all of that said, my alarm's going off. With all of that said, what book, film, or a piece of art has had the biggest influence on your writing style?
God, trying to isolate just one. It's really difficult. I'd say the biggest influence on my style in terms of writing character, and this is going to sound really odd because it's so removed from what I write, was probably D Space Nine,
Oh,
because the balance of characters on that show, um, is just I don't think any sci-fi has ever matched it before or since. Um, but in terms of dialogue and how to develop character and how to build a credible and diverse array of characters in a broader world that is constantly changing and how they're kind of reacting to it. And you have a fusion of the political and the religious and the personal. So I would say in terms of learning and being influenced, it would probably be my number one, my number one name drop for that.
Okay, excellent. Well, what fictional or historical character would you invite to a march with you at Pride Parade?
March with me at Pride Parade. I mean, one with a big umbrella. Um, I'm too old for standing in the sun for 3 hours. Um,
Well, if you're in San Francisco, it's closer to eight, but
well, there you go. There you go. I don't know.
Mary Poppins comes with an umbrella.
yeah, there you go.
There we go. I would, but she'd overshadow me though. Um,
And you could get a
hmm.
bird's eye view. There's the other side of it.
Well, that's possible. I mean, that would save my legs considerably. I don't
Yeah.
know. Does Mary Poppins qualify as queer? I
Well,
can't use that answer. You came up with that. So, um, hmm.
okay, the flying nun. We'll just keep going with flying
No,
characters.
all right. Um, hmm. I don't know. I think probably John Waters.
Oh, that would be
Nice.
fun. That would be a lot of
Nice.
Yeah,
fun.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I could totally see that. I was thinking also like Celia Rivera or Marsha P. Johnson might be very interesting to do a pride parade with.
That would be very, very interesting. But I think John Waters is just a little more,
On the camp.
well, camp, but also close in terms of like my influences. I often say that like I have four tentpole directors who are the biggest influences on my style, which is John Waters, David Lynch, Pedro Almodovar, and Greg Araki.
Oh, okay. Well, he has a new one coming out. Did you know about
He
that?
does. He does. I'm
Yeah,
very excited
yeah,
about that.
yeah.
And
So am I.
didn't think we'd wind up with that.
Yeah, I know. That's a lovely surprise this year. Okay, if you or your protagonist had to survive a gay bar karaoke night, what song would you or they belt out?
A gay bar karaoke night. I mean, I would probably go to something by Depeche Mode or New Order,
Oh,
just
okay.
because the vocal range isn't all that challenging, and all the high maintenance campy gays would instantly tune out, so I wouldn't have to deal with them. So, I
I,
did put me in a karaoke situation. I'm going to get into survival mode. So,
right. Okay. Okay. All right. So, what's a place, real or imagined, that feels like home to you and why?
hmm, home to me. It's, I mean, it's kind of difficult to say. I've been so, I guess, travel aggressive in the last 10, 15 years of my life. I'm kind of fortunate in that, like Toronto feels like home to me, Sydney feels like home to me. Um, I think Berlin, even to an extent, I felt very, very comfortable there, despite the sort of language barrier. Um, I often say Barcelona is my favorite city in the world, but I think because it is so heavy with tourists and it's not that big a place, it doesn't really feel like home as such. Um, but yeah, but I would say that, wherever I'm sort of feeling comfortable, I'm like, yep, this is where I belong at any given time. Uh,
Nice.
All right. I love that. Okay. What's the strangest or most unexpected place you've ever found inspiration for a work of yours?
Strangest or unexpected place. this is going to sound weird to some people. Some would think, well, of course you'd find inspiration there, but for me, it was my hometown.
Oh,
Just this is, it is such a non place in terms of um, kind of culture or things that are unique or stand out. Like it's a perfectly nice city of like 120,000 people, but nothing. I think the one piece of art that I come out that references it was literally called "Nothing Exciting Ever Happens in Name of Place Ever."
right.
Um, and and out of that, I sort of had the foundations of My Cat's Guide to Online Dating come out
Hmm.
because I'm like, okay, what's this? How can I take something that is so completely banal and turn it into, the craziest story imaginable? I mentioned David Lynch is one of my tentpole directors, but it's kind of something that he was an absolute master at. You look at a movie like Blue Velvet, or any or even The Straight Story, which has no surreal elements whatsoever. He can still take any completely banal setting and make it feel like you've been transported into another world. I kind of admire that. I really so yeah, it's kind of how I view sort of generic settings. It makes them that much more exciting.
All right, excellent. Well, which themes or motifs do you find yourself returning to again and again in your work?
I've noticed, hmm, I've noticed sex workers tend to show up a lot in a lot of my stories, and I try to keep that in a pretty positive or neutral sort of depiction. I just think there's been enough. They too often go for there's too much out there that sort of delves into cliches of the destructive side of that career. Um, but I find them really interesting characters because they see a lot and they hear a lot, and people open up to them in a way. Sex workers and hairdressers
Yeah,
are the
yeah.
most knowledgeable people about people
And
that you
sometimes
can
they're one
find.
and
I
the
mean, you're
same.
well, exactly. I mean, there was no accident that Marie Laveau was a hairdresser,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
she magically seemed to know everything about everyone in the town. Well,
There you go. But
but yeah, so I find sex workers really interesting to come back to. I find like small-time criminals or characters that are kind of on the edge of what is acceptable and kind of morally gray in that sense are very interesting to me.
yeah,
They tend to be a lot of my characters tend to be kind of self-serving and then just sort of they're almost anti-heroish. They kind of fall into doing what's going to work out for someone or everyone else. Um, And then a lot of my characters are either filmmakers or film students, or that's basically just an extension of me. It's like these are my passions. This is what I know I can infuse the character with that is going to make them more vivid. And I love, you know, it's basically kind of like speaking my language to a
mm,
certain kind of reader who is into those weird cult movies and those sort of niche interests. So I really enjoy doing that.
Nice.
excellent. I really like that. Okay, finally, what's a piece of LGBTQ plus culture, music, film, art, or history that never fails to inspire you?
It never fails to inspire me. Um, I find I can go back to James Whale's horror films from the 1930s. So for those who don't know, this is Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, The
Mm-hmm.
Invisible Man, and The Old Dark House. Like those are the four. They're all extremely queer. Um, they're obviously dealing with the 1930s sensibility, so a lot is under the sort of under the radar, but they are genuinely horrific in a lot of ways. They deal with aspects of found family. They're um, brilliantly funny, still 90 years on. Um, so yeah, even though there's such well-known texts, I've always find something new to draw out of them from a queer perspective that can give my can give a novel or a new story a push along in some way.
Love that. Love that. Did you ever see Gods and Monsters?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, I thought they did a very good job at humanizing him and bringing him,
Yeah, and
some
Christopher
clarity.
Brown's book is fantastic as well.
Oh, I have to check it out. I haven't read it, so yeah, I'll have to definitely check that out. I mean, well, you made it through our list. Bravo.
Bravo. So what's up next for you? What are you working on?
What is up next for me? Right now, I am working on what is going to be the last in the Arcadia Trust series.
You're bringing it to a close?
I am bringing it to a close, or
Oh,
well, the main series at least. I'm not ruling out other spin-offs, minor characters, whatever. But yeah, Raylan's main story is coming to a close with this one. So yeah, that's what I'm working on at the moment. I had grand ambitions to have it out in the spring, and that's not going to happen. So I am not going to
so
announce a
look for a
release date.
fall release,
Exactly.
like the Maple Leafs. It'll
So
drop in the
yeah,
fall.
that's right. Well, it could drop in the fall, but no, I'm not going to commit. I'm not going to commit to anything at this
Yeah.
point.
Not
It
as
could
of
be
yet, too.
any. Yeah, it could
Well,
be
we
anything
said fall. We
between.
didn't say what year.
Yeah, well, that's true. That's fair enough. Um, yeah, so it's probably not going to be like video game delayed, but yeah, but that's what I'm working on at the moment, and it's because it is the final one in the series. It's got a lot of character stories to wrap up.
Right.
It's got a lot of elements that I want to at least sort of feature and try to. I mean, I've been writing this series now for 12 years, so a lot of different readers have sort of approached me with different elements of it that they really like. So I'm trying to make sure that the finale has a little something for everybody. It's not going to please everyone, obviously, because no book or piece of art ever will.
Right.
AKA
But
Stranger Things
yeah,
season 5.
hey, I'm going to try my best.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, well, no,
Yeah.
yeah.
but I can promise it's going to be a satisfying finish. That's
I
all.
I will say Albert and I would just reacted to Stranger Things season 5, and one thing we came away with as authors was we were glad whether you liked the ending of that show or not, we were glad that the creators got to tell their story their way. It wasn't done by focus group or fans writing it, or I like the fact that the authors, because it was the Duffer Brothers, had complete control to the end. And that, I think, needs to be championed more than anything, that we as authors get to have creative control over our works.
Yep.
It does because that's the only way the stories kind of endure or have a decent shelf life.
Mhm.
Anything that is done by a focus group is forgotten within a week.
Yes.
And because we're dealing with a culture now that is so fast turnarounds, it's like no, the paint isn't even dry on the
And they're on to
last
something.
installment
Yeah.
of the
Yeah.
series, and we're already discussing a reboot.
Yeah.
Because that ending was so terrible. It's like, well, really? Have you did you even get to the end of it before you decided that?
Mm.
Um, but yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It needs to be we need to more stories need to be in the hands of the creators and auteurs.
Yes, absolutely. That's
You'll
the
like them or you won't,
Yeah,
but
that's
at least
exactly
they
it.
will be
And
what
if
they're
anything,
supposed to be.
if they don't like it, then hey, there's an excuse for you to go write your own story. So,
Yeah, exactly.
So,
If you can
Christian,
tear yourself away from complaining on the internet for,
good luck.
know.
Speaking of on the internet, where is the best place for people to follow you so they can keep up with your updates, especially pending the new release?
Well, best ways to check out what I'm doing and what's upcoming is on my simply Christian Baines. You can sign up for my newsletter there. I normally send it maybe one a month, which will include any sort of upcoming news or releases. Sometimes I will do profiles of other authors. Sometimes I will do my thoughts on new film or other releases of some sort. I also have a Facebook group, which is Darklings, Queedos, and other readers of Christian Baines. So that's another good place to find me. Um, and I am also on Instagram and Blue Sky as XTIAN Baines.
Yep. We will have
So
all of those links
replace the Chris
on
with the
your.
next. There we go.
Yep, and we'll have all those links on your page on our site. Do you have any final words of wisdom?
Words of, oh God, I think I've said this to you before. Coming to me for words of wisdom is an absolutely terrible idea. Um,
And yet I keep asking.
I know. It's like we're going to get there eventually.
That's
I,
that's
I'm
the
just going to eventually
definition.
hit that.
That's the definition of Vance's insanity.
Well, this is true. Eventually, I'm going to get to an age where the filter is going to fall away, and whether they're words of wisdom or not, you're going to get them. But
That's the benefit of old man status. You have zero fucks left.
Hey, this is your episode. You have permission to drop the filter at any point.
Yeah.
I know I do appreciate that, but as I learned writing this final, as I'm learning writing this final installment, always hold a little something to surprise people with, for better or worse. Um, Words of wisdom. I would urge people to read outside your safe genres
Yeah.
and don't be
There you
afraid to
go.
mix
Hmm.
sort of genres. Be kind of open. Questions will yield more for you than answers or keywords. So
And who knows? You may fall in love with a whole genre you never considered.
absolutely. Or I don't know. How do we sum this up? Maybe fuck the algorithms.
Yeah. Well, that's the
Forget
best
what
way
the
to say it.
algorithms tell you
That's the
should be
best way
watching.
to say it. Yeah,
Yeah.
Fuck
absolutely.
the algorithms. There we go.
All right, folks, we'd like to extend a huge thank you to Christian Baines for joining us today. Christian, thank you so much.
Oh, guys, thank you so much again for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
And it's always a pleasure to have you here with us talking.
Yeah.
All right, we at Written on the Edge are proud to introduce you to new media by queer content creators. If you enjoy learning about new artists or hearing our thoughts on entertainment media, please like and subscribe so you get the alerts for new episodes. Our show was produced by Rogue Ravens Media. For our links to social media, our listen stations, or to sign up as a guest, visit www.ropepodcast.com. Tune in next week for your queer media fix.
Bye bye now.
Oh, what's that? Closing time. The bums rush in melody, dear.